Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I would like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is a little bit different. It's kind of a special webinar that we're putting on specifically for the Maryland regions, the foreshore regions, and the Northern Virginia regions of BNI. For those of you that may or may not know, we are going to be doing a migration of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Chicago, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Maryland in just about a week and a half or so. So what we're doing today is some pre-training on the Vice President and Membership Committee positions and all of the things about BNI Connect that they'll need to know about. That being said, as with just about all of our webinars that we do, we always like to invite anybody that would like to join us for these webinars, anybody that might need some more information or that might want to brush up on some of their skills. Everybody is welcome to join, and I know that we do have some people here today from the upstate New York regions. We have some people from the Manhattan regions as well, and probably some other people from around the United States, if not the world. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. So as I said, today's topic is going to be on the Vice President and Membership Committee role. So the things that we're going to be talking about today are things like how do you submit a POMS report, and what does the POMS report look like, and how do you edit the POMS report afterwards? How do the online slips affect the POMS report? How do you do an online renewal, and how do you review and or approve an online renewal? As well as some of the various reports in the system, especially for the membership committee. When it's time to review a membership, what reports can you use to find information out about the members? I'm also going to be giving a little bit more of a tour, especially when it comes to the online slips, because I know that that's something new, especially to the Maryland, Virginia, D.C., Chicago people. Want to make sure that they get that information. Before we do get started and jump in with both feet, a couple of things I want to let you know is that this is a live webinar. So as we're going through the material today, if you have any questions whatsoever about BNI Connect, please feel free to ask those questions. The best way to do that is to type your question into the question panel. I'll see that pop up on my screen, and as we're going through the material, I can jump in and answer that question, or if it's completely and totally unrelated, I'll make sure that we leave plenty of time at the end to answer any questions. Now, we're scheduled for about 1 hour's worth of content. That being said, if you guys have questions, this is what I do all day, every day. I answer questions about BNI Connect, so I'm always happy to stay on these calls as long as necessary to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. We are recording this webinar as well, so if you do need to share this with other people that you know aren't here, you'll be able to find this recording later. We do have Jerry Schwartz, the Executive Director for the BNI Foreshore regions, so I'm going to be sending him a copy of this afterwards, and he can distribute it out as necessary there. If you do want to find a copy of this, though, you can always go to the support site. The support site is support.bniconnect.com. You can always get there by clicking this question mark if you're logged into BNI Connect. Or again, if you don't yet have a BNI Connect login, if you're just joining us, just go directly to support.bniconnect.com. support.bniconnect.com. And what you'll see when you get here is our list of the upcoming webinars for the month. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a section called Chapter, Training, and Documentation. And here we have walkthroughs and guides of everything that's available in the system, but also you'll see recorded webinars. And you'll see one for May 2015 as soon as I can get this one done. If you just click through, you can watch any of the recordings here. Or, of course, you can go directly to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Up here we have all of our various webinars and educational moments and things like that that you're welcome to check out. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at today's material. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, and probably the primary responsibility that's on most vice presidents' minds, is the POMS report, and how do we enter the POMS report? Because I know that's the first thing that you're going to want to do when you come live on the system in a couple of weeks, is to catch up on those POMS reports and get them entered into the system. Now, way to enter POMS reports is that we're going to be going into the menus, but before we do that, let me give you a brief tour of the home page here. Now, the home page is the My BNI Business page, and what you'll see here is some information. Now, the top portion of this page is going to be your personal business report. So even you guys that are coming over to the system for the first time, this should be filled with information. It should show you the last 12 months of the referrals received, and thank you for closed business given, referrals given, visitors, one-to-ones, and CEUs. And it's pulling that out of all of the historical POMS reports. And it'll give you a quick snapshot of the last 12 months as well as your lifetime. The one thing that you won't see there, though, is the revenue received to my business. And the revenue received to my business is it's when we submit the online slips, we keep track of the revenue received to your business for you. Since you're thanking somebody else for business, we assume that that is the money that you're receiving to your business. So we'll keep a tally of that for you. But everybody will start out as 0 when they first join BNI Connect. And as you submit thank you for closed business slips electronically, that number will start to accrue. So even myself, by the way, I am a 12-year member of BNI. I've been a member of the Wakefield chapter here in Rhode Island since 2002. And when we first started on BNI Connect a couple of years ago, my thank you for closed business received, my revenue received also started as 0. So how do these slips work? There is an online platform for submitting slips. So instead of submitting paper slips at the chapter, what you can do, and what a lot of chapters will do, is to submit your slips as they happen during the week. So as you have a referral for somebody, you can log right into BNI Connect, for example, and click on Submit Referral Slip. Now, this should look pretty familiar. It is just the typical referral slip that we would have on paper. It has a drop-down for the various members of your chapter. So let's say I have a referral for Matthew Wall. Matthew Wall is the Midas car repair person in our chapter. And let's have a referral to Joe Schmo. It's a Tier 2 referral. I gave Joe Matthew's card. I can put the address information in here as well. Telephone number and email address, as well as comments. Joe needs an oil change and some new tires. I can now rank this referral on a scale of 1 to 5, and when I'm ready, I just click Submit. Now, the nice thing about the online slips is that once I click Submit, the other person, my referral partner, is going to get an email notification immediately. So, for example, as I said, I am a member, and I received a referral just a couple of days ago. It says, congratulations, you have received a new referral from Jason Souza. It's rated a 5 on the temperature scale. It gives me the contact information for that referral. It gives me the email address of the referral. So when I receive these on my phone, I can follow up on that referral right away. It also gives me Jason's contact information if I want to get in touch with my referral partner without having to look up that information. Now, once I submit a slip, whether it's a referral slip or if it's a thank you for closed business slip, again, this is very similar to the thank you for closed business slips that we pass in now, or whether it's a one-to-one slip, or whether it's a CEU slip. As soon as I submit one of those slips, they will immediately be placed into that week's POMS report for review by the Vice President. They'll also immediately appear in my slips reports. So, for example, I can review all of the referral slips that I've passed. Now, by default, it's going to show me the last month, but if I want to, I can go back to the beginning of time, or to the beginning of when we first started submitting slips anyway, in order to look at the details of every slip that I've ever passed. Now, to me, this is a huge benefit of using the system, one of the biggest benefits of BNI Connect, and that is the fact that when I pass a piece of paper at the chapter meeting, that piece of paper disappears after the meeting, or maybe you guys as vice presidents have them sitting in file folders or wallpaper in your bathrooms or something like that. But normally I can't go back and look up that information. Once you start tracking that information individually, I can then go back, for example, and look at all the referrals that I have passed here electronically in BNI Connect. So I can go through, I can review the information, I can look it up, I can recall a phone number, I can review the notes on it. And from this information, I can also say, hey, who am I passing the most referrals to? Now, as a vice president, this also means that every slip that is passed is automatically in the POMS report and waiting for you. So picture this. If your whole chapter is submitting their referrals themselves, their one-to-ones, their CEUs, their thank you for closed business, if they're submitting them themselves online through BNI Connect, after your chapter meeting, all you really have to do is go to the POMS report, put in the attendance for the meeting, and submit the report, as opposed to taking all that time to count out the paper slips. Now, a couple of things that always comes up in conversation with this is, well, what about the accountability factor? Well, I'll show you the accountability factor in just a second. There is a special report that you can look at as a vice president. And then the other question I get is, well, what about the door prize? How are we supposed to give out the door prize at our chapter meeting? Well, there is a print your weekly slips here. So what you can do is, for the chapter meeting, you can go and print out your slips before the meeting. And what you'll see here is that the referral slips are designed to be about the same size and shape as a regular referral slip. And then the rest of the information is designed to be in a fashion that you can read that information off at the meeting. Although there's not necessarily a reason to hand in a paper slip anymore since it's already counted. The only reason to hand in the other slips is so that you can be included in the door prize. So what does this look like to you guys as vice presidents? Now, in order to access some of that information, we are going to need to go beyond the home screen here in BNI Connect. So along the top, what you'll see is a number of different menu items. We have network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. The way I always remember where to find stuff in BNI Connect is that network is going to be all of the social media functions of BNI Connect, which we're not really going to get into today. But this is the way that you get in touch with other members of BNI from around the world, the groups and the connections and the testimonials and things like that. Now, operations and reports are really where you're going to spend 99% of your time. Operations is all of really the day-to-day operations of running your chapter. So it's where you're going to do all of your data input. On the other hand, if you're looking to find stats, you're looking for information about your chapter, like the summary POMS report or the dues report, things like that, that's all going to be under the reports section. So if we're looking to input a POMS report for the week, the place we're going to go to is operations, and then chapter. As Mark says, operations, when you want to do something. Absolutely. And reports are when you want to see something. So thank you, Mark, for that. That was perfect. So once we get into the operations menu, these are all the things that we can do. We can manage visitors. We can manage the meeting. We can manage memberships. We can manage chapter goals. We can work with the mentoring program. There's a few different email options that we have, and we can manage the chapter news feed. We're talking right now about the POMS report. So the POMS report has to do with a meeting. So what we're going to do is go to meeting management. Under Meeting Management, we have a couple of options. We can view the POMS summary. So if we would like to go back and look at any of the individual POMS reports that have been entered, we can view the POMS summary. If we'd like to just jump right in and enter a POMS report, we can do that as well. Within here is also more for the Secretary-Treasurers, but you have the speaker rotation. So let's go in and take a look at the POMS summary as they appear. Now, right now I'm up in my test region, so I'm up in Antarctica in my Burr chapter up there. But we can go back in time and look as far back as we want to at the individual POMs that have been completed. So we can see we haven't been doing a very good job up in Antarctica of making sure that the POMs reports have been submitted. But we can see that on the March 4th, we have a draft that hasn't been submitted yet. On March 11th, we have another draft that hasn't been submitted yet. Then we do have one on the 25th of March that was completed, and one on the 22nd of April that's been completed. Now, normally in an everyday chapter, these are going to be happening every week. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is let's take a quick look at my own personal chapter so you can see a more realistic view of what this looks like. So let's look at my BNI Wakefield chapter, and let's look back going to the beginning of April. And here we can see the various weeks. So we have our POMS report from the 2nd, which has been completed, our POMS report for the 9th, which has been completed, the 16th, the 23rd, the 30th, which has not been completed yet, but hopefully will be before tomorrow's meeting. And then we also have the report for this week. Now, you'll notice that there's a report for this week, even though the meeting hasn't happened. And that's because as soon as the online slips begin to be submitted for the week, they will automatically go into this draft copy of the report. So let's take a look at that report. So for last week, today, hopefully, our Vice President is going to go in, enter the draft report, and what we can see here is all of the activity that was submitted for that week. If we want to finalize this report, we can go in and click on Enter POMS. When you go to enter the POMS, you'll first be asked if you would like to approve any visitors that were invited. For example, Sammy Farland was a visitor at our chapter last week who was invited by George Sourwine. So what it's asking is, would we like to give George Sourwine the visitor credit for this week's meeting? And we can choose either yes or no. If we'd like to check that report, we can also click on the POMS link. I'm going to skip this one for now and click Continue. So I would like to submit the report for April 30th, so I would click on Enter POMS. And what we'll see here is all the information. Now, if you're using paper, you will have to go through the paper just like you always have and count up the referrals and the one-to-ones and the visitors, etc., and enter them into the report. Notice that if you're using CEUs, you do have to scroll over a little bit to the right in order to enter the CEUs. Attendance can be done through the drop-down box. So we have the present, absent, late, medical, and substitute. And there's a place at the bottom to keep any notes about that particular meeting. If you'd like to verify the online slips, there's also a button at the top that says Slips Audit Report. If you click into the Slips Audit Report, you'll see all of the online activity for that week. So all of the thank you for closed business, all of the referrals, all the one-to-ones, all the CEUs, and all of the visitors as well. At the bottom, you will have your options now, so you can submit the POMS, which means that this POMS will now be complete, and it will now, all of the statistics will go towards all of the official statistics. Mark as holiday. This means that you didn't meet that week. Even if your chapter doesn't meet, it is necessary to go in on that week and to mark that particular POMS report as a holiday report. What that does is it takes it out of the statistical rotation. So things like referrals per week and absences per week and other calculations will not include this week as part of the month. In addition, if there are any online slips for that week, it will take them and push them to the next week's meeting. If you've started entering information but you need to leave your computer and come back again, you can click the Save as Draft. And if you completely messed it up and you want to start all over again, you can discard the POMS. We do have a question. Lisa asks, why were some of the names bold in the report view? So if I go to the Slips Audit Report, you'll notice that some of the names were bolded. So for example here, we have a bolded Jason Souza had a one-to-one with Randy Santoro. It's bolded because that is a cross-chapter one-to-one. And Randy Santoro is a member of the Business Exchange. And the same thing here, Jason Souza had a referral for Shannon Brito of the BNI Business Exchange. Now, when you do have a cross-chapter, one-to-one, or thank you for close business, or referral, those statistics will show up correctly in the POMS reports of those both chapters. So, for example, in our chapter, Jason got a referral given, and in the Business Exchange chapter, Shannon got a referral received. So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. Let's see. Frank has a question. Frank says, if I go back to another month to mark a meeting as a holiday, will the stats still transfer to the next meeting, which is still in the past? If you go back all the way back beyond a couple of weeks, what will end up happening is that marking it as a holiday will always push the online slips to the next open POMS report. So if you're going back 2, 3, 4 months and all of the reports since then have been closed, it will actually push those statistics to, let's say, this week's POMS report. So whenever you're marking as a holiday, you do absolutely want to go in and make sure you're doing it on that particular week, or at the very least before the next meeting is closed. So does that answer your question, Frank? All right, what other questions do we have about the POMS report? If you would like a report, if you're keeping track on paper, there is this print POMS sheet option as well, where you can print out that week's blank sheet if you find it easier to either keep track at the meeting, or if you need to use a piece of paper to count up the slips if it's easier to do it that way. That's what this POMS sheet is meant for. All right. Any other questions on the POMS report? All right, let's look at a couple of other tools that you'll probably find helpful as a vice president. Under the operations, one of the other things that you'll find helpful is under this create email. Now, one of the things that we always have to do as people that are on the leadership team is get in touch with people from our chapter. Now, I know for me, before BNI Connect, when I was part of the leadership team, if I wanted to get an email out to my whole chapter, either I had to maintain my own Outlook distribution list, or I'd have to go back to my email, find the last group message that was sent out, hit reply all, and kind of hope that it went to the right people. Now, in BNI Connect, we can do that by going to the operations menu and going to create email. and then email my chapter. Now under email my chapter, this will give me a list of all of the current members' email addresses. So people that have left a chapter will no longer be included, and the new members will be included in that list as well. So I can always just highlight this, copy it, and then using my own email program, I do always recommend pasting it in the BCC field. That way you don't get all the responses back saying, yep, got that message, yep, got that message. It also keeps people's email addresses private so that if the message gets forwarded on, all of the email addresses aren't listed. Another really helpful function under here that's available to all members is the ability to email a visitor invitation. And this is a great tool for just inviting visitors to your chapter. What it does is it just takes this information that we're about to enter in and it puts it into a predefined email template and sends it right out. So what we can do is just type in, let's say that I was going to invite Jerry Schwartz to our chapter meeting. I would type in his name, type in his company name, and his email address. Now I'm going to send this one to myself so you guys can see what this looks like. I'm going to put in a quick personal message to make sure that this is coming from me to establish that relationship and say, thanks for being on the webinar today with me. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. Are you up for a drive to Rhode Island? All right, so now once I send this, as I said, it will immediately be sent out to whatever email address I put in there. Now keep in mind these are not tracked in any way. We're not keeping a list of email addresses or collecting email addresses. It's just a means of being able to put together a quick invitation. A nice professional graphic is put in there. Then, dear Jerry, thanks for being on the webinar today with me. I'd love to introduce you to my referral partners. Are you up for a drive to Rhode Island? It then puts in the information about my chapter, where we meet, what day we meet, what time we meet. It briefly explains what BNI is all about, lets them know that I'm looking for somebody in that profession, and to please RSVP with me so that we can make sure he's coming to the meeting. All right, there is also a goals program that's available for chapters and for leadership teams to track their goals throughout the upcoming year, as well as the mentoring program where we can assign mentors and mentees. Now, granted, those are more than likely going to be functions of other people in your chapter to manage that part of the process, but it's good to know that those things are there. The next thing that I'll need to show you is the ability to work with the online renewals, and the membership committee and the vice president have a very important part of the process of online renewals. As part of this process, you will be able to do a few things. You can pre-approve members for approval, so that way when their renewal comes up, they will be automatically approved and continue right on to the renewal. Or as members submit renewals online in BNI Connect, you will then be prompted to go in and do an approval for those memberships. So let me show you quickly how that part works. Now let me switch over to my other system here. I'm going to switch over to the training system. When a member goes in to renew, what they're going to do is click on this Renew Now button. And this will allow them to renew their membership. Now, before they renew, if you know that somebody's renewal is coming up, 90 days before their membership is due, as a person on the leadership team or a membership committee, you will get a notification saying, by the way, these people are up for renewal in your chapter. And that email will have a list of all the people that are due in 90 days. From there, it will give you a link that you can go in and click on in order to pre-approve those memberships. You can either click on the link in that email, or in BNI Connect, you can go in and pre-approve them through the membership dues report. Now, in order to get to the membership dues report, we are going to, again, have to go beyond the home screen here and dig a little deeper. So to go into the reports, we would go to Reports, Chapter, and here we'll see our list of reports. Now, I'll go through some of the reports in just a few minutes, but the place that we want to go to in order to approve an upcoming renewal is going to be the membership dues report. Once you click Go, what you'll see is a list of all of the people in your chapter, and if they're not already pending a renewal, you'll see a little red head next to their name. All you need to do is click on one of their little red heads, and this will bring you to the pre-approval screen. Now, as a membership committee member, you'll only see the top portion of this screen. Keep in mind that BNI Connect is not a voting mechanism. It's rather an approval mechanism once you've made your decision. So the meetings as a membership committee and as a vice president, they still need to happen to review the process. However, once you've made the approval, you can go in and pre-approve them. Now here you'll be able to see their name. You can see their statistics for the last 6 months. You can also click on the training details link, which will bring you to that person's membership. And from here, you can see which trainings they've attended, as well as go through the rest of their profile to see if they're participating in BNI Connect. Once you're ready, you do need to assert that all of the necessary performance reviews and discussions have taken place. You can choose whether the approval is conditional. You can mark whether control letters have been sent if necessary. And then you would just click pre-approve. If you pre-approve somebody, Kelly at that point would get a notification saying that you have been pre-approved. Would you like to go ahead and start your renewal at this point? And when they do their renewal, they can just proceed through with payment. From a member standpoint, entering the renewals is pretty straightforward as well. Again, they would click the Renew Now button, or they would click the link in one of the email reminders that they're sent. Oh, looks like I've already started processing my renewal in the training system. So once they click Renew Now, they will be shown an application. They just simply fill out the application, submit payment, and if they weren't pre-approved, the next step in the process is for you to go in and approve it as a membership committee and a leadership team. Now, for the most part, that is the same process as the pre-approval. The difference is that it's no longer here under the dues report. The dues report is just for pre-approvals. In order to process the post-approvals, we would go into the pending members report. So to do that, we would go back to the operations menu. So under operations, in order to find the pending members, we're going to go to Manage Memberships. Under Manage Memberships, we can click on View Pending Applications. Under View Pending Applications, we'll see all of the people that have submitted online renewal applications. And for those that we want to approve, we'll see a little check mark next to them saying Approve. And once again, this is the same screen as the pre-approval. The only difference is we do now have a copy of their application, which we can review by clicking on the PDF link. We can review their application, what they answered for the various questions. Again, we can review their training details. And finally, we can certify that we've had our meetings and choose to approve or decline. All right, so far we've gone over the online slips and the POMS report, as well as the renewal process. Let's take a look at some of the reports that I find to be really helpful for leadership teams here in BNI Connect. And again, of course, in order to access the various reports in the system, the place that we're going to go to is Reports, and we're going to go and look at the chapter level reports. So again, we're going to see our list of reports here on the left-hand side. So some of the reports that I find really, really helpful. The first one, of course, is the member training report. So especially as you're doing your renewals and your reviews of members, the training report is a great one just to find out who's been to training and who hasn't been to training. Of course, you can look through a specific time period. For example, to see how many people had gone to the member success program from your chapter in the last, let's say, 6 months. And here we can see the people that have gone. But more importantly, and this is especially true for the secretary-treasurers, is there is an option to show never attended. So especially when you're getting ready to assign people to the speaker rotation, if you choose Show Never Attended, this will let you know which people are not yet eligible to be giving a 10-minute presentation, and also what their joining date was. The next report's a fairly obvious report. It is just the chapter roster report. But what's especially important about this report is, besides listing all of your members and their phone number and their company name, as well as the 90-day statistical report, is up at the top it will show you all of the officers and the regional leadership. It's important to make sure that the right people are assigned to the correct positions, and this is the place to check that. In addition, you can also get your, for example, director consultant's name and their phone number if you need to get in touch with them for something. We briefly saw the membership dues report, but aside from being able to use this for the pre-approval process, this is also great for looking at to see who you need to review, especially if you do a 6-month review before somebody is due. So not just looking at the people that are due in the next month, but also the people that are due 6 months from now. So the people that are due in October and November and December. Reviewing those people is important to make sure that we give them enough time to improve, especially if they're on the borderline. At the bottom of this report, if you scroll down as well, it will show you any new members that have joined, any late members, and also any members that have dropped. Now, the meeting notes report is a very, very simple and straightforward report, but it's one that I find to be very helpful in chapters. I'm not sure how many of your leadership teams do this, but what we do in our chapter is we pass around a sheet of paper every week that people can keep notes on during the meeting. It's especially good at helping members to generate more referrals, because when you pay attention to what is being talked about at the meeting, that allows you to be able to recall that information later when the opportunity arises. And that's really what this report is for. It allows you to basically print out a sheet of everybody's name, their company name, and a blank area to keep notes. So as you're going around the room giving your weekly presentations, you can write down that, for example, Christy Armstrong asked to be introduced to Joe from Acme Company. One of the great things about the reports in BNI Connect is that you can very easily get any of them out to Excel. This is a great example of a report that works actually better in Excel than it does just printing it out from BNI Connect. Now, to export something, you would just click on one of these links at the top. You have export without headers, export, and print. So obviously printing, send it to the printer, as we just saw a second ago. Export without headers and export. So export means that you're going to export everything that's on this sheet, including all of this information up top. Now, most of the time we don't need this information at top, and it tends to kind of mess up the Excel spreadsheet. So the best thing to do is to click on Export Without Headers. This will bring this report out to Excel for us. And now we have full control over the formatting of this report. So for example, if I wanted to do something like format as table, I could choose, for example, a color scheme, and now this allows me to very easily sort this report. I can also at this point, if I wanted to, let's say, have more room for keeping notes. I could expand this report out. Maybe I want to make this box a little bit bigger. And now I can either keep notes electronically, or I could print this out and have a bigger space to take notes. The Summary Palms report is the bread and butter of BNI. So of course this will give you the last 6 months, but you can change this to any date range you want to. So if I wanted to look at my Palms report for my chapter going back to the beginning of time, I could do that. I could go back as long as I want to, even though our chapter has only been around for about 14 years. At the bottom, you're going to choose whether or not you would like to show the dropped member names. Now, of course, since our chapter first started, we have had quite a few members that have been members but may no longer be members now. So if you'd just like to see the current list of member names, keep this unchecked. If you'd like to see the names of everybody who has ever been a member, you would put a check in the box. Either way, it is going to include the contributions of those members in the totals screen. So I choose to hide the members, but it will give me a list of everybody that's currently in the chapter, and the total line, again, will include everybody's contributions. And of course, this is one that I can export or export without headers, which means that if I wanted to do things like sort by who has given the most referrals in order to do recognition at my chapter meeting, I could very easily do that. Now I'm going to skip down a couple of reports. Once you get into BNI Connect, you can go through all of the reports. Really, you can't break anything in the reports. But while we're on the subject of Palms report, there's also one called the Personal Palms report. Now I find this report to be extraordinarily helpful for 2 reasons. One, it's great for when you're doing member reviews. So when you're reviewing people for renewal, or when you're doing something like a 6-month review, this is a great way to look at their individual contributions. Now the Summary Palms report will just give you the numbers, whereas this will give you really the trend of the membership. So for example, I'm going to just choose myself from the list. You can choose anybody from your chapter. You can choose any length of time you want. By default, it's going to give you the last 6 months, but again, I can go back further if I'd like to. And what this does is it gives you a week-by-week rundown of their membership. So you can follow along week by week to find out what their contributions were. And it'll have a total at the bottom. Now, as part of that, this is also a great report for troubleshooting POMS reports. So if you have a member that approaches you and says, you know what, I don't really think I have 3 absences, what you can do is pull this report and pinpoint the exact week in which they were absent. So we can see that, for example, I happen to be absent on March 5th. But it makes it much easier to see that as opposed to just looking at the summary POMS report and saying that, yes, there just is 1 absent, or combing through the individual POMS reports under the operations menu. As part of this report, it will also give you a summary of their attendance, the members that they've sponsored, and finally, the trainings they've attended during that time period. For you vice presidents, there's also a couple of detailed VP reports. The VP report is a month-by-month report, so it gives you a 1-month view of the POMS. So I can choose a particular month, and it will show me side by side, week by week, the POMS reports. The cumulative POMS report is very similar. It's just a 6-month view, month by month. So again, this does have a 6-month maximum. And the reason it has a 6-month maximum, by the way, is just that it is simply too wide. So once we started adding more than 6 months, it just got to be too wide to fit on the screen anymore. And finally, we have the POMS attendance report. Now, especially when you're looking at things like absences in the chapter, I happen to find this report incredibly helpful. And the reason that I find it helpful is because it does give us some insights into your members' performance. So, for example, you can look at this report, and for a member, you can see their trends. So you can see if they're absent for a number of weeks in a row. Or you might be able to spot a member that, perhaps might be on the verge of leaving the chapter because they have a bunch of lates and maybe they have a bunch of absences, and it could show a waning interest that you might be able to go back and rescue that person. All right, so we're at about 10 minutes before the top of the hour. What I would like to do is I'd like to open this up to questions, and I also would like to, Jerry, I'm going to open up your microphone. Is there things that you do in your region that you feel you would like me to show in BNI Connect as well?
No, I think everything's pretty clear for anybody that's in my region and probably also in Northern Virginia when we're both connecting over to Connect pretty soon. There's a few things here that we have not done before in the BNI Net, so we have a few new reports. The CEUs we have not done a lot of in some of the chapters before, so this will be something new that we'll go over with everybody. And just remember, you cannot get on to Connect until toward the end of the month, but you'll get an email from me or Sam Schwartz or whoever your executive director is letting you know all the instructions on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. For those of you on the webinar, do you have any additional questions? I would be happy to answer those questions at this time. All right, let's see. We do have a question from Mark. He says, visitor invitations in the Create email. All members can send these, correct? Yep, absolutely. All members can send the visitor invitation. Now, let me just give you a caveat with that one, Mark, and everybody else, is that permissions do vary by region and by position as well. So depending on what region you're from and what your position is, will depend on what you have access to in BNI Connect. Now, for example, if I go to the operations menu here, most members won't see the manage memberships option because they don't have any permission to manage memberships or enter an application or view a pending application. So that wouldn't even appear there. And the same is true under the create email. While the default is that all members have access to email my chapter and email visitor invitations, it may be that in your region the decision has been made not to have that function turned on. And as you come across these things, the best thing to do is to talk to your executive director and ask them if it can be turned on or if it should be turned on or why it's turned off. So does that make sense, Mark? Does that help? All right. What other questions does anybody have? All right. Nan says, thanks from Southwest Arizona. Much appreciated. So we had some people not just in the Northeast. So excellent. Thanks for being here, Nan. All right, just a reminder, I'm not seeing any other questions, but a reminder that this is being recorded. You'll be able to find it on the support site, support.bniconnect.com. A good referral for me is to please join me for any of the remaining webinars this month. So we do have a number of webinars coming up, including one this Friday on completing your profile. We're going to be having another one for Secretary Treasurers next Monday. Then I know I briefly touched on the giving and tracking referrals online, but we're going to go in depth just on that topic on next Tuesday. Please take a look at the list of webinars and share those with your fellow chapter mates and regions and colleagues, and that would be a good referral for me.
If I can just add in also, Jeremy.
Please.
In my region, at least in the BNI region that I'm taking care of, there's an email that went out to all the leadership teams, all the members, about all the different webinars. Please go back to your chapters and tell them how valuable this is and that they need to definitely be on, especially the new people coming onto the system. These are invaluable to them.
Yep, absolutely. And I realize that some of you may not be on until the end of the month, in which case I repeat this whole series on a monthly basis. So you can always join us in June as well. All right, so I guess that's going to be about it. So again, Jerry, thank you so much for putting this on for your region, and thank you to everybody else who joined us as well. Look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. Happy connecting, everyone.